Hi, my name is Stephanie, and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the show Everything's Gonna Be Okay, and I'm an autistic person to give you an autistic perspective. Thank you to my viewers and patrons for mentioning and voting on this topic. And also, my That's So Stimmy merch is available, as well as other designs. You can check out my merch link in the description box below. So let me start off with, a lot of people will like this show, especially if you found Atypical disappointing. So for those of you who really want to see LGBT representation, neurodivergent representation, stuff like that, you're definitely going to find it in this show, and you'll probably really enjoy it. Two of the cast are for sure autistic, playing autistic characters. One of the main cast characters, Matilda, is an autistic character played by an autistic young woman, and then a sub-character supporting role is also done by Drea. The character is Drea and is portrayed by an autistic young woman as well. So it's really cool to see, you know, autistic representation in the show. And they have GIFs, whatever you want to call them, floating around showing a scene that made a lot of people really happy because it is something where you get to see stimming on screen normalized, not, you know, treating someone like they have the plague and that they're crazy for stimming. And stimming that's realistic because it's stimming that an autistic person is doing. So it's really, really cool to be able to see that on screen. So the premise of the show is basically Nicholas, this young man who is very unstable and pretty immature, is, I think, visiting his father's house, and then suddenly, before he leaves, his father basically says, "Oh, by the way, I'm dying from cancer. Would you please take care of your half-sisters?" Which would be Matilda and Genevieve, Matilda being the autistic character and Genevieve being her non-autistic younger sister. And then basically they're left on their own to be this very, very unconventional group of people. The first episode was really honestly super hard to get through. I felt super spinny, everything was chaotic, I felt like I was getting a headache, and parts of it were also getting boring to me. It was just like a hot mess. And maybe that speaks to the kind of offbeat show that this is. If you like kind of like a fun chaos, this is the show for you. Now, part of the reason I was bored maybe because I was really looking for Matilda as the autistic character because that was the marketing that got me to watch the show in the first place. For the first episode and for a lot of the episodes, I found that Nicholas was really the main focus for a while, and then Genevieve and Matilda both kind of share the spotlight after him, in my opinion, and sometimes even after that Genevieve gets more attention storyline-wise, just from my perspective. Keep in mind, I was watching specifically for Matilda, so that might also be a part of why I feel that way. The following episodes aren't as hard to get through, but they definitely make my head spin. There's definitely all the chaos going on. The music choices also can get really loud. There was times where I was thinking like, I need to turn that down, and then realize like I can't, it's part of the show. Some people really love this kind of sheer chaos going on. I don't. I like things to like give me a breather and then engage me and then make sense, and this just isn't that kind of show. So for me, it's just not my style. It is not my type of show, but I will try to tell you a little bit more about it. It could very well be your kind of show. First thing that I noticed, to be completely honest with you, is that Nicholas's voice annoys me a lot. It gives me a headache, and that might be really rude. Some people love his voice. I was seeing like some people, I guess he's played another character in something before, and they're like, oh my gosh, I love his voice. It's just not my cup of tea. Like, it gives me a headache. But again, some people really like it. I just especially don't like it when he thinks he's being cute as the character Nicholas. But like when he's being more serious, or like he's being more like calm and engaging with the girls and stuff like that, then it's like a lot more bearable. And him as a character also kind of follows that. So he gets in a relationship with this guy, and their relationship doesn't make sense to me because Nicholas is a very strange character. He doesn't make sense. He is chaotic and unstable and very childish and selfish, and I don't understand him. And then he is often that way in his relationship. And I just don't understand how that relationship works out, because they will go through scenes where it's clear that Nicholas and his boyfriend are not seeing eye to eye. I can't remember his boyfriend's name. And where Nicholas will do crazy things and not understand why that's not okay. Apparently some of this stuff comes from his mother, who is controlling and manipulative. Coming back to Nicholas really quickly, he does, you know, take on a guardian role for them, but he is hardly capable of being responsible for himself, let alone other human beings. And his like lackadaisical approach to them sometimes drives me insane. I don't understand. Like, it's absurdity, and some people just thrive off absurdity. I don't. But he does have his redeeming moments. You might find him a lovely character. I don't know, maybe he's meant to be polarizing. I don't know. Then we have Genevieve, which is the youngest one. She is not autistic, and she has probably the most normal or typical storyline for someone in, I think she's technically like, I don't know if she's high school or like middle school. She's either like older middle school or younger high school age. She has a friend group that, in my opinion, sucks. I really don't like her friend Tallulah, who is just pushy and rude and fake and crazy. Also, if you are uncomfortable with what appears to be children talking about very adult things in sometimes graphic detail and bluntly, then you won't like Tallulah either, and you might just not like this show either, because Tallulah brings them into some seriously strange conversations that I never had with people when I was younger, and I'm appalled at I'm just saying there are times I don't understand how this is rated TV-14. I'm just gonna say it that way. So either way, Genevieve is a pretty cool kid. She sometimes takes more of a motherly role over Matilda, even though she's younger. She's always kind of concerned on watching out for maybe if she's gonna have a meltdown or have struggles with things. Of course, sometimes this means that she might try to prevent her from doing things because she's scared she won't be able to handle it. Then we get to Matilda, which was the character that I even turned on the show for and watched the entire first season for. She is autistic. She is very open to all the things. All the things. So she's kind of written to have that ideal, where a lot of times they'll write autistic characters to have like this mental plan of how life should be. So she kind of has that issue. She very clearly doesn't always read social cues. She does make sometimes like funny jokes, and she's pretty confident in herself. She's very blunt about things. Some things did bother me. A lot of times she'll say things about talking about herself, like, can I talk about myself now? Or my dad didn't like it when I talked about myself so much, which is frustrating because I don't know if she was told that or if that's supposed to be like a thing that's an autism thing. And it was annoying because her family members talk about themselves plenty, so her also randomly talking about herself or something relevant to her didn't seem out of place. It just was hard to hear her say it, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. The whole season just confused me, to be honest with you. So there were definitely moments with Matilda where I could definitely relate. I really appreciated how they showed some stims that, you know, aren't pretty, where she starts to hit her head because she doesn't understand why, like, she maybe did something wrong, but she doesn't understand what she did wrong. Or one time she reveals that she was crying alone because she didn't want to be a burden. So like those things I can heavily relate with, and like that was neat to see on screen. The only thing is with this show is that it'll give you like that emotional moment where you think like they're gonna actually explore this, they're gonna actually like look into this, and then they just yank you on some crazy roller coaster maze ride that I'm not down for. Like, trying to follow what is happening is really hard. And I'm not kidding you. I needed downtime after watching episodes because I was having headaches from all the insanity that was going on. So unfortunately for me, it was really hard for me to actually relate to the characters, and other than like the autistic parts of Matilda, I honestly found Genevieve the most relatable person. Now, as I mentioned before, this show is rated TV-14. It's on Freeform, which their tagline is something along the lines of "we're a little forward," and they're not kidding you. So I think that if you are not comfortable with adult conversations frequently, especially happening from minors on screen or people playing minors, this probably won't be very comfortable for you. There's a lot of bizarre things. So not only like are their actions bizarre, but they're also like super blunt about their emotions and what they're thinking, which people said that they found refreshing. I found them sometimes helpful, but also sometimes confusing, because that's just not how real life works. And I think that's probably my main issue, is like this whole show is just like not how real life works for the most part. Like not all of it, but there are just so many things that don't make sense, and then they're like very open about a lot of their feelings, and they just say what they're thinking, and like that's just not how life works. Like people don't do that. And so even though it's nice, and like a lot of times it's like, oh, that's how people are feeling, it just feels fake in that way. And that's really weird to say, but I think some of the things about portraying autistic people, especially with always just blurting out exactly what they mean, that's not always the case. I don't know why it bothered me. I think it's just because every character would just like blurt out how they feel exactly, except for the people who like you kind of knew their name and they kind of were there, but they weren't actually important. Those people acted like normal people, but like everyone else just says things and does things that people don't actually do. And I think that was just really the biggest thing for me, is like, other than the music and the crazy storyline and the people who don't make sense, it's just like all these things come together, and it bothers me because my brain likes things to make sense. In fact, this is why I actually don't like a lot of drama shows, because they start getting into this point where it's like, this would never happen. Some people enjoy that stuff, just not my cup of tea. Then there is a thing that happens in the last episode of the season. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here. That gets to talking about Genevieve's feelings about her life a little bit, and kind of about Matilda. And it gives you a view of maybe how Genevieve experienced life. But at the same time, some people feel that it was at Matilda's expense. And with this show being so like blatantly obvious with everyone's feelings and stuff, who knows, maybe it'll go on to maybe explore that dynamic better. But there's just some things implied about autistic people that people who would otherwise very much approve of this show might not appreciate. But again, just like with Atypical and with anything, I think it's only fair to let the other people involved in situations have a voice too. Like, that's just how Genevieve feels. We have to accept Nicholas's absolute insanity and Matilda's quirkiness and things that don't make sense to me, but whatever. So to say like, oh, but Genevieve's not allowed to feel this way isn't really fair. But I can see where people might be concerned that other people might take that as like just a fact. I don't know. I'm this way on that. So in conclusion, I'm not going to be watching season 2. I just, it's very chaotic, and I do not thrive on chaotic stuff, but if that's your cup of tea, then go for it. It is cool to see people stimming and autistic people just being a part of the cast. So there is like a light touching on like, yeah, they're autistic or whatever, but for the most part, they're just kind of part of this crazy world, and it's not super focused on. I'm a person who likes to like look into the nuance and what everyone's thinking and feeling and how these things are dynamic and all those sorts of things. So I just didn't get a lot out of the show because every time we started to like touch anything deep, it was like, never mind, we're gonna go do something crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Or maybe it makes more sense to other people. So I'm not gonna watch another season. It's not my cup of tea, but it was cool to see autistic representation. People, like actually autistic people playing autistic characters, like that was cool. But yeah, so you might like it, it's just not for me. Anyway, I've said the same thing like 5 times, so thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts on it and what your thoughts on it are. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you would like to hear more autism-related content from me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!